Composition is an avenue many musicians think about pursuing. If you are one of these, this episode is for you. Welcome. This is Music Student 101. Your hosts, Jeremy Burns and Matthew Scott Phillips.
Okay, welcome back to Music Student 101, everybody.
Welcome back.
How are we today, Matt?
I'm doing good, Jeremy. It's been kind of a busy day, but we're here now doing one of my favorite things, which is podcasting.
And one of my favorite things is when we have a special guest. And
Indeed.
Today we have a very special guest.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
That would be you.
No. Oh, I'm way too modest. I hate talking about myself, but I guess I'll plow through it.
All you gotta do is answer a few questions.
Okay.
And then I'll chime in a few nuggets wherever I can as it applies to myself.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
But this is our inaugural composition episode.
Our inaugural composition episode.
And we have a lot of cool things to talk about, and the springboard for many, many great more podcast episodes down the road.
Let's hope so. Obviously, this is my favorite subject.
Yes.
I think so, at least one of my favorite subjects, so this is kind of what I do.
I like to think most musicians at some point sit down and think, I'm going to make my own piece of music. I'm going to make my own original piece of music.
I think they probably do. I think at one point or another, I think anybody who plays an instrument at least has the idea, right? You know, whether they turn into full-blown composers or songwriters, you know, maybe not all the time, but I think at some point most people do at least have an idea and think, oh, that would make a cool piece of music, right?
Well, I have a pretty good idea for this episode here. And Matt, just so everyone knows, Matt's coming in cold, totally cold.
Totally cold. I've been running around all day. I have looked at nothing.
Well, we normally sit down before each episode with our coffee and we look at the notes and we talk about it a little bit, but not today.
Not today. Jeremy wouldn't let me see anything, so.
Nope. So we will get into that in just a little bit, but right now I have a couple of things I'd like to say.
Okay.
This is the moment where we learn more about you and you learn a little more about us.
Excellent.
Now, normally we do we read a review and thank them, and then we do a Patreon patron and we do a listener mail. Mm-hmm. I think in lieu of the review today, we're going to try and do something a little bit different because I have a few shout-outs that I want to give, but I don't want to put too much time into this when we have some good composition to talk about here.
Okay.
So here's my first shout-out. You ready?
Give it to me.
Our good announcer, Mike C. That's Mike Cunliffe.
Yay, Mike.
Our awesome announcer.
Who you have heard on literally every episode.
Literally except for the one that Jerome Chapman jumped in on.
Oh, okay.
When Mike and Sarah were working on the play.
Literally all but one episode.
All but one. Let's see here. So the last episode you heard, not instrument care, but what the hell was the last one we did?
Modal mixture.
Modal mixture. So the last episode you heard, boy, see, maybe this is an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
I had been on the road a whole lot, and I'd just gotten back in town off another shoot, and 6 days in a row, long days. I just traveled in from Tuscaloosa. Wow. I got Mike in the studio, and he showed up. Normally, I've had the whole intro written by the time he shows up, but there's been a time or two in the past where I just didn't have it together. Mm-hmm. And this was one of those times, and Mike sat down with me and kind of helped me piece my brain back together, and actually he came up with a lot of great verse and helped me to completely write that.
Yeah.
And like I said, he's done that a few times. So he's not just reading what's
He's
said.
not just some guy that we stuck a mic in front of and say, hey, read this script.
No, he often has valuable input in the characters we come up with and in the content which we put out. So
he really is awesome, and he really does do good work, and he really is a professional. I mean, that's a skill.
He is. I look to his expertise because he's aside from being a talented person in general and a great mind, he is the chief editor over at Meredith, which was Time Inc. before Meredith brought it out. But they do hundreds of videos, and he's constantly hearing dialogue, often aimed at marketing and advertising.
Yeah.
So he knows what the kids are listening to and what the kids are digging these days.
He knows how to make it sound interesting.
Yes, sir.
Which we don't. We're theory nerds. We don't.
Yeah, we're not known for our creative writing skills.
Yeah, exactly. So
put a notation in front of you.
Yeah, couldn't do it without Mike.
So thanks again, Mike. We have another one. I'm going to try and keep this light. I'm going to try and keep this short. But I do want to say thank you to Tyler DeGuire, a recent patron of ours. We recently had, unfortunately, on Black Friday at a local mall, we had a shooting.
Right.
And Tyler checked in on us via email to make sure that we were okay.
That's sweet.
So
Yeah.
That was very kind.
Yeah.
This is not a political podcast, but we're both very upset about the shooting. And that it happens as often as it does.
Indeed.
I assume you concur with that.
Oh, yeah, indeed. It's bad, whatever your political stances are.
Mm-hmm.
People dying for no reason is bad, and I think we can all agree on. But it was really nice for him to check in on us. We were nowhere near.
No.
I avoid malls like the plague on Black Friday, so I was nowhere near. As far as I know, none of my family were anywhere near.
I have 2 words for Black Friday. Cyber Monday. Hey, honestly, the last decade of watching footage of people trampling themselves and kicking and screaming and biting and punching,
man.
It's like, what?
Get
out of here.
Yeah, my significant other and I, we've had a tradition for several years running of not leaving the house on Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really big Greek food festival in town.
Yes.
Right, and if you live in Birmingham, you know about this. It's a huge deal. I mean, I think the whole city comes through that church that weekend.
St. George, I believe, or St. Elias, right?
Yeah, and they have this big, huge. It's a Greek Orthodox church, and they have this big, huge Greek food festival. And our tradition for many years running was to go to that in September or October. And you could buy frozen pistachios, which is like a Greek lasagna kind of thing. You could buy this just like 30-pound thing of pistachio, frozen pistachio. So we would always buy one of those, take it home, and stick it in the freezer until Black Friday. And then we wouldn't leave the house at all. We would drag out the pistachio and bake it up and eat it and do that instead of even leaving the house because it was just nuts, right?
That's pretty remarkable. That's what you call planning.
Yeah.
You guys definitely did not want to get out on Black Friday.
Oh, we're not about it. We're not about it.
Well, I don't know what black meant before, but now it just seems to mean another dark day that we get to look forward to horrible press releases from and whatnot. But let us move on. Let us move on with better, nicer things. Tyler, thanks again for caring. Thanks for checking in, and we won't forget that. That's very nice.
Indeed.
Okay, my final thanks. We have a listener named Simeon Jaffe.
Oh, yeah.
Who wrote me just last night. This is a week before this release is going to be. So
okay.
And he said, love the podcast, but I found a couple of things that I kind of need you to, I'm seeing a spot where he found a place on the website, episode 3, mind you.
Oh, wow.
This podcast has been running for 2 years. And on the desktop version of the website for episode 3, there was a formatting nightmare that had occurred.
Oh, gosh.
Or I think what might have happened was maybe I accidentally hit the align button to where everything is on top of everything.
Oh, that's not good.
So I got to go back and reposition all the things. I checked the iPad and the iPhone version. They seemed okay, but apparently he was looking off the desktop version.
Yeah.
But that's the first time someone's mentioned that to me. That should have been mentioned a long time. Hey, I'm not holding you guys responsible. I'm not holding you responsible, Matt, because I'm taking on the role as the web designer, which I'm not a web designer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we usually...
I probably looked at it on my phone and said, "Yep, looks good." Yeah. I kind of have the bad assumption, and this is an obviously erroneous assumption that if it looks good on the phone, it's going to look good on the desktop, right? Because it's more likely to mess up from desktop to phone. So but.
We'll get into all that in just a second, man.
Yeah.
But at least, when I put out an episode, you, for the most part, if it's theory heavy, I know you go back and look over it just to make sure that all the topics and pedagogy
I
is
do,
proper.
but I do look over it for material content more than formatting.
Yes.
I will have that caveat.
Apparently, formatting is not my strong point. And sometimes spelling, sometimes grammar.
Right.
I still get rhythm wrong many times. I have to look at with my 4-year degree in
like,
music.
how do you spell rhythm?
Yes.
That's hard,
with my
isn't it?
4-year degree in
That's
music.
hard, yeah. Is RHYTHM.
Yeah.
You just got to think of the right. I have to think of the rhythm. RHYTHM.
I need to make up a rhyme for rhythm.
Yeah.
to learn how to play rhythm.
Yeah. So, contrary to popular belief, we don't know everything.
And we don't get everything right.
And
so
we don't get everything right.
if you guys find anything to that nature, write in immediately and I will correct it.
And it will get corrected post-haste.
Yes. Post-haste and forthwith. So, thanks again, Simeon. Thanks for looking out. And
well, back in episode 3, man.
Yeah, man, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I've been looking like a fool for 2 years. Help keep us in check, y'all. Don't just think that this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Just think he might have pushed the wrong button.
What episode is episode 3? What were we talking about? Was that scales?
Rhythm, interestingly enough. Please tell me I spelled it right on the top of on the title page.
Simeon, go please spell check. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Oh, boy. Okay. Let us move on, shall we?
Okay. Let's do that.
We have a Patreon patron
Yay!
that I want to talk about here. This is a friend of mine named Russell Martin. I call him Uncle Russell because a long time ago when I was in college, I played in a band called Tonal Vision. We had a gentleman named Bob Barker. Not the Bob Barker.
But a Bob Barker.
Well, not the Price is Right Bob Barker.
Not the Price is Right
The Bob
Bob.
Barker, as far as I'm concerned. Bob was our manager, and he had an uncle named Russell who was actually younger than he. And so I just always got a kick out of that. And we always called him Uncle Russell. Russell Martin, he works in IT in Fairhope, Alabama. But he lived in Birmingham for a good bit, actually. And I wanted to talk to him a little bit so I could tell you guys about him. Just get to know him, make sure I know him as well as I thought I did. So I called him up a few nights ago. And when I called him up, I hear boom, 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 boom. He's plunking around on his bass when I call him
nice.
up.
Very nice.
He actually took bass lessons from me a while ago because he
nice.
decided to start picking it up and work with a cover band.
Okay.
So anyways, he said, I did not know this about Russell, that he began playing piano when he was about 8 years old. And then his mom got sick, and she passed away at a very early age. He was 10 years old when she passed away, and so the piano went way to the wayside. Mm-hmm. Fast forward 20 years, he decides he wants to get back into music. So he picks up the banjo and starts playing bluegrass music with my friend Bob. And I remember getting together at many parties where we'd bring our instruments and jam and have a good time. He would sing and play.
Yeah.
And then he decided, he said that bluegrass is very structured, not unlike blues. It's kind of predictable.
Yeah, it's got a few set chord progressions that are set that way so that you can do other impressive things and not worry about chord changes.
Yes.
Yeah, like you said, like blues or like rock in some ways.
For both genres, it might be a bit different with contemporary music, but in traditional versions of these genres, the music is pretty diatonic. There's some flattening going on in blues music for the 3s and the 5s sometimes, 7s. Bluegrass music, you'll rarely hear a diminished or augmented chord.
It's because those are very hard to play on the banjo.
Well, that's another thing. Uncle Russell, tell us a little bit about that, why don't you? And he also mentioned unless you're Bella Fleck. So Bella Fleck might have changed that a little bit.
Yeah, maybe a little.
But so he decided to pick up bass to be a little more versatile and play with some more people. He got the live music itch, I guess, and wanted to play with some local people. And let's see here. He said that his very first gig, this goes back to our Taking Care of Your Instruments episode. He said the very first gig he played, he realized he'd forgotten, he didn't run it through his strap. He didn't know about that little technique.
Yeah.
He kept on stepping on his cable over and over throughout the night. And then at the end of the night, during the very last song, he stepped on his cable and kaput.
Kaput.
So at least he made it through the show.
Yeah.
But that was the end of it was the song before the very last song. One way or the other, that was the end of the show.
Oh, man.
So I thought that was kind of funny. But currently, like I said, he lives in Fairhope, and he's playing with a Grateful Dead band, a cover band. It's a 7-piece band, and it's called East LA Fadeaway. They play once a month all over the Fairhope area. Now, his band is kind of big on theory, and now he's recognizing its importance because he's really communicating with his band better than he thought he would be able to.
Yeah, that's one of the big things theory does, is allow musicians to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Now, interestingly enough, he says his sax player and his keyboard and the drum player for the band had never played Grateful Dead music. but now they're walking around in tie-dye T-shirts.
It's infectious.
Hey, it's pretty challenging music, honestly. If you sat down and tried, there's a lot of weird time changes. And then
the Grateful Jerry Garcia, rest his soul. He had a knack for making things very fluid, right? So a lot of time signature changes and key signature changes and things that he could do and make sound. They didn't sound like a time signature change, right? They sounded really fluid the way he played and the way he structured it.
Because if you can structure a melody that does that, you can fool your listener to thinking they're hearing something completely normal, but there's all this crazy gears turning underneath it.
Yeah, and it just adds, it creates interesting music, right?
And speaking of the Grateful Dead, Phil Lesh, their bass player, now I did not realize this until Russell told me the other night, he's a classically trained horn player, Phil Lesh.
I didn't know that, but
And obviously he approaches the bass from a very melodic standpoint.
Right, yeah.
To where when I'm trying to do Grateful Dead songs, I don't play note for note what Phil's playing.
Yeah.
I play my summation of what I think he would be doing based on what I've heard him do for the song.
Yeah.
But if you hear the live versions, he's doing something different every time. And one thing that always kind of blew my mind about the Grateful Dead was, and almost sometimes made it a little bit difficult, overwhelming, I'd say, to listen to, is you have all these melody players, and sometimes they'll just be playing all melodies at one time.
It is counterpoint. Right?
A lot of counterpoint going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very cool thing, and that's a very big challenge for a bass player. So I got to give him a shout out to Russell for taking that.
Yeah, that's no easy task playing in a Grateful Dead cover band. Yeah, those songs are more challenging than they necessarily sound. That was part of the brilliance of Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead. You know, and those songs are more challenging than they sound.
Right.
That's not just a couple of three chords. They're interesting stuff.
Yeah, a lot going on, man. So hats off to you, Russell, for taking that on, and hats off to you for helping us out on Patreon. Thank you for your donation.
Thank you so much. We always like to hear that we're having a positive influence.
Right.
And speaking of which, so we have some listener mail. Kirk Schwartz sent us a donation a little while ago via PayPal. Thank you very much, Kirk.
Thank you, Kirk.
He is from Loudoun County, Virginia. Loudon? Loudoun. He is, let's say Loudoun County, Virginia.
Works for me.
Unless he emails us to say we got it wrong. But when he wrote us back, he was, quote, sitting outside in Provence, France, with a stiff glass of pastis, smoking a pipe full of fine Dutch tobacco, not wanting to go to bed.
Nice.
I can relate to this scenario.
That's why I wanted you to read that, man. I think you would dig that.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. And he continues, so I guess this is a good time to finally express my appreciation to you both for your incredibly enlightening podcast. Oh, thank you, Kurt. We try. I have been playing music off and on my whole life, starting with forced piano lessons. We remember those. Then rock and roll, guitar, then finger-picking blues acoustic, then a 20-year hiatus while I learned to be a visual artist, which I do professionally today. And, I have utmost respect for visual artists. That is not a skill I have.
No. Yeah.
That is not a talent I have. I can't draw anything.
Right.
Anything.
Stickman theater for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A few years ago, I fell in with a group of country/old-time/bluegrass players and ended up playing the washtub bass with them. Oh, nice. I got so good at it, I started playing gigs. That's right. I actually make money playing the washtub bass.
Okay, we should visualize this for a second.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we?
Yeah, I'm thinking of the high-end washtub bass player who is not getting out his washtub bass for less than $200.
Yeah, must be nice. Well, that's a very niche-specific role.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're going to get all of the washtub bass gigs in town.
Now, we've all seen bluegrass bands with the upright bass, but what a washtub bass is, I think, is you can go to Home Depot and for $60 to $100 make this happen. It is literally a metal basin washtub, right?
Yeah.
Turn it upside down.
Yeah, run a 2x4 along the...
It's got a ridge around it.
Yeah.
And you kind of cut a groove into a mop handle.
Yeah.
Stick it on the ridge that's on the underside of the of the
Oh, yeah,
of the basin.
So the mop version. Yeah, okay. The mop handle version.
And then you get a single, weed whacker wire.
Yeah.
And run it from the top of the mop handle down to the base of the washtub
Yeah.
And then you can change, by pulling the mop handle back and forth,
You can change the note pitch of the, yeah.
But you only have the one string.
Yeah.
And you got to get it right because you're changing pitch by moving your arm back and forth. So it's a very interesting thing to behold.
That's, wow, yeah. I would love to hear some of this. Kurt, send us some video.
Hey, seriously, Kurt, send us something and we'll play it.
Yeah, seriously, send us something, we'll play it. I want to hear this. I do. Meanwhile, that rekindled my interest in music, and now I find myself on a 6-year obsession learning to play the fiddle. Oh, wow, yeah. That is a challenging instrument. Of course, he's already playing the washtub bass, so...
He answers to no frets.
Yeah, right? You never know where life's journey is going to take you. So I decided to get more serious about music theory and stumbled across your podcast. You have clarified so many things just on my first binge listen through your episodes. I too felt motivated to get my own copy of the Tonal Harmony textbook and now have a new obsession. Yay!
Interesting, huh?
Tonal Harmony, yeah.
Tonal Harmony.
That is a fine tome.
That which myself and Matt cut our teeth on.
Yeah, back in the day. I spend long hours standing at my easel painting, not being able to play my instrument, but I can learn more about music nonetheless as I paint by listening to you guys. Thank you so much for demystifying music theory for me. And thank you, Kurt. That is wonderful to hear. All of that is great. I seriously want to hear some recordings of you on the washtub bass. Mm-hmm. Seriously want to hear that. Demystifying theory. Theory is... I've never thought theory was something that was supposed to be mystical. Mm-hmm. I feel like some people out there kind of have this idea of it as almost this wizardly-like thing. Where it's this sort of specialized knowledge kind of thing that people spend years poring over, and they think of it as almost sort of this mystical sort of,
magical
knowledge thing, this wizardly kind of knowledge.
Untangible.
Yeah.
Ungraspable.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really not. It's really just a...
Intangible? Probably intangible.
Intangible, yeah. Intangible.
Hey, did anyone catch that? Check my grammar, y'all.
Edit.
Carry on, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was kind of rambling. I was just saying, and I've never thought of it that way. I've never thought of it as needing to be mystical or anything. It's basically just a set of observations about how musical notes are put together. Mm-hmm. And say, well, this music does this particular thing and makes us feel this particular way and is interesting in this particular way because of these things, because it's doing this thing A and thing B and thing C, and that's what music theory is. Mm-hmm. It's not a big mystical tome. I was talking to somebody the other day who had said that he had gotten, this may have been one of our listeners now that I think about it actually, but he said he kind of had gotten turned off of music theory because because the people who knew music theory were kind of obnoxious about it, kind of snobby about it or something, and he kind of got turned off from that idea, and, it's not something to be snobby about.
Nah. The word itself is intimidating when you hear something
music theory, yeah.
Think, oh, God, they're going to talk about math and... Yeah. Of course, there's a little bit of that, but really not a whole lot. I mean,
it's really not. There's really not. People try to equate music theory with math, and you can do it, but it's really a very highly specialized language for music.
Well, even though everyone's musical journey is different, we're going to kind of talk about yours today, Matt.
Oh no!
Because I'm sure that there's a lot of people who relate. And we're going to take it from the first time you plucked a guitar string to the last time you sat in a symphony hall with people playing your music and people standing up and applauding it.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to be cringing in my seat over here. But okay.
I got a great quote to start this off with.
Excellent.
Okay, so I was listening to NPR One the other day.
Okay.
I got it on my podcast,
yes.
on my phone, under my podcast. And they had this episode, which was actually, I guess they took it from the podcast 20,000 Hertz.
Okay.
Which I have a new favorite podcast, by the way.
That's a good one.
20,000 Hertz. I didn't even know, but it's apparently all for music, or ear nerds, really, mainly technically.
Yeah, really kind of audiophiles.
Yeah. They had episode 54 was called The Xbox Startup Sound. And they were talking to composer and sound designer Brian Schmidt. And he's the guy that came up with that sound. along with doing composition for video games and movies and all that.
And all
that
kinds
stuff,
of other
sound
stuff,
design.
yeah.
He said, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I would say a sound is worth 1,000 pictures. How do you like that?
I love that quote.
All right, Matt. Give us a recap on where you are. 2 years have passed since we recorded our intro, for example. So,
okay.
What are some things you've done since then? Just kind of tell everyone.
In the last 2 years? Oh, wow.
In the last 2 years, we talked a bit about ourselves on the inaugural episode.
I vaguely recall that, yeah.
Tell us where you are now.
Where I am now, let's see. Obviously, I'm still teaching. Mm-hmm. So I teach at a couple of different colleges here in town. The University of Alabama at Birmingham, which is my alma mater and Jeremy's alma mater. I also teach at Birmingham Southern College. Some of the classes I teach at those two schools include music theory. Obviously, I've taught music theory. I teach ear training pretty much every semester. Those two, and also orchestration, advanced theories like form and analysis. I will teach classes in world music. I've taught classes in counterpoint. Teach classes in composition as well. So I teach a lot of different musical things. And I've taught incoming freshmen and I've taught grad students, and I continue to do that. I'm trying to be more active because this is kind of a fault of mine is I don't initiate projects a lot, but I'm trying to remain active in the Birmingham Art Music Alliance, which performs music written by contemporary composers, largely Birmingham composers. Which means I'm writing a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm writing a lot for string instruments now. For whatever reason, go figure. I just recently finished a string quartet and had it performed.
Good stuff.
Yeah, they did a great job.
There's a full performance available on the Patreon page, just so you guys know.
Yeah, absolutely. The third movement is there on the Patreon page, so go check that out.
Full version of the third movement.
Full version of the third movement, yeah. So I did that. I've been writing for piano trio, and
wasn't there a saxophone quartet in there somewhere?
There was a saxophone quartet that I've written. I've written a horn quartet. I've written for Pierrot Ensemble, which is mixed ensemble, flute, clarinet, violin, cello, piano, and percussion.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've written some stuff for voice, and I continue to just, try to get things out. I have a string quartet on a upcoming CD of string quartet music by Alabama composers, and so that's kind of what I'm doing now. I teach a lot, I write a lot, try to stay active in my community a lot.
You've also done a little bit of electronic music, which we're going to talk about someday.
Oh yeah, that was back in my Georgia days. So as I'm sure I mentioned back in that initial episode, I got my doctorate in music composition from the University of Georgia. And they had a great electronic music studio there, and I did a couple of great, I thought they were great. I did a couple of music or electronic music pieces out of that studio, and that was a great experience.
I'm sure someone else thought they were great, Matt.
Let's hope so.
Electronic music can be a little dodgy, though. It's not for everybody.
There's a question of, is this even art? Or is this even art, but is this even music?
Music, yeah.
People will say, well, this is just a bunch of sound effects. So how do you get off with calling this music?
Where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
Between a cat screaming down the hallway and a violin screaming down the hallway.
And a violin screaming down the hallway. Between me playing violin and my basset hound's, famously negative opinion of my playing violin, because she would howl.
Maybe there's not a big difference between the two.
Everyone's a critic, man, I tell you.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, this is a very important question. That doesn't get asked nearly enough.
Yeah.
So when people say, like, with electronic music, well, how do you even call that music? My response is, well, what do you call music? Because your answer of whether or not you think something like electronic music is music or something like, some of John Cage's pieces or something, whether you think that's music, is going to depend a lot on, what you define as music, right?
Fair enough.
And it's one of those things where, too broad a definition doesn't mean anything, right?
Yes.
If you widen that out to include too much stuff, then, the word has kind of just lost meaning. But too narrow a definition leaves you in this space where the definition doesn't really serve you very well,
right.
So it's important. It's to sort of define what you say. Is birdsong music? This is a question I ask my students sometimes. Is birdsong music?
If you ask a bird, maybe so. If you ask a lot of people, maybe so.
Yeah.
There's pitches, there's pitch classes, there's all those things going on.
There's rhythms, melody,
repetition, there's pulse.
If there are two birds singing, there's counterpoint.
Yes.
There's phrasing.
Yes.
So, but you look at even in that discussion right there, what you found yourself doing is listing off values that you expect music to have.
Anthropomorphizing the birds.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about melody and pitch and phrasing and rhythm and pulse, and so you've listed off a lot of things that music is supposed to have.
That we consider musical.
That we consider musical. So you're starting to define a set of values and sort of define music. And for a lot of people, electronic music will sort of exist outside of those parameters. For a lot of other people, it won't. If you choose to define music as any pleasing sound, ordered to be artful, then electronic music falls within those parameters. So I mentioned John Cage. John Cage pretty much made no distinction between sound and music. He said sound was music, just like music was sound, and any sound is a musical sound in the sense that it can be a part of your musical world.
Yeah. A lot of his compositions consisted of many minutes with non-musical items being clanked upon and chiming out.
Yeah. He did a lot of interesting stuff. We'll talk about John Cage in a future episode, I suppose. But
incidentalism.
Yeah, or aleatoricism.
Aleatoricism. Ooh.
Yeah.
You just have to give us a little teaser of what exactly that is.
Just chance music.
Chance music.
So music that involves some sort of undetermined quality, something where you don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Imagine, if you will, a piano in which you open it up and throw a live salmon on it.
Throw a dead fish on it, yeah.
Live salmon, and then he becomes a dead fish, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That would be never played the same twice.
Yeah. Or imagine telling your string player, play up and down the E string for 5 minutes, and you don't know exactly what notes are going to happen when, or even imagine a cellist. Imagine a cellist who's been given a score that has, that doesn't look like a score at all. It's just this graphic representation, in which, you have just these, lines or things, and you're just told to interpret it however you see fit. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. He's going to interpret that in a way that's not predetermined. So
right, yeah. Well, they sound like odd things, but these are all compositional techniques.
These are all compositional techniques, yeah. 20th century compositional techniques.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, when you went into college, did you know that you're going to be... I know you kind of took the academia thing and ran with it.
Yeah.
Getting your doctorate and all that stuff, your master's and all those things.
Yeah.
Did you know when you went into college? I mean, I think I knew I loved music, but I didn't see it as a possibility, so I kind of focused on biology and psychology.
I had the bright idea that I was going to be an audio engineer.
Okay.
So when I first graduated high school, I did a couple of years of community college. Mm-hmm. And then when I came to UAB, my big plan was to work in recording studios, just recording stuff, and move to the top of that world. I thought that sounded like something that I was interested in that could also make money. I mean,
right.
you know how beginning college students think. Right?
Well, you got to, yeah. You think I'm putting in all this hard work, hoping I will make some money at some point from this degree.
Yeah.
That's just the thing. That's a lot of money. People.
Maybe I should have been more patient and stuck with it, but my first couple of semesters at UAB, what I discovered was I'm not learning a whole lot about audio production or audio engineering. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm learning some things, but I am definitely learning a whole lot about music theory, and I just got swept away in it. Mm-hmm. I just got swept away in it, and it was my favorite subject. Well, and which is, you know, I laugh because so many music students, that theory is probably their least favorite subject or one of their least favorite subjects, but it was my favorite subject.
Well, I was pretty enamored by it. I took my intro to music, I guess it was just music basics or whatever, with Dr. Clemens. Mm-hmm. And I love that guy. He was great, and I loved the course, and I loved all the knowledge I learned and was able to apply it to what I knew already and thought, wow, this goes deeper.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And I'd always loved writing music. I mean, I had written songs as a teenager and, you know, forced my friends to play them in a band.
Yeah.
You know, much to their unending frustration, you know. I mean, I think they just wanted to play Metallica songs. But it's like, no, I wrote this thing. We're going to play this. You know.
Well, this actually brings on the next question. When did you decide to go into composition, or more to the point, when did you feel that you were capable of writing on that level?
Do I feel now that I'm capable of?
I feel you're capable.
Oh, thanks.
You fooled a few people along the way, Matt.
Good.
If you're not.
Good. I always wrote songs. Mm-hmm. I remember being 11 years old, and, you know, my grandmother would be babysitting us, and she would sit me in front of her piano. You know, it was kind of like sitting kids in front of the TV and they'll be quiet. You know, you sit me in front of the piano, and I would just sit there and make up. I mean, I would kind of sort of just, just kind of random. And I was so I always was someone who was writing music or trying to create music. You know, all through my teenage years, all through college, you know, I was writing. When did I feel like I became capable? Well, you know, you and I both were in an ensemble called the Computer Music Ensemble.
Yeah.
It was called the MIDI Ensemble back then. It's now called the Computer Music Ensemble.
Hey, Dr. Angel.
Hey, Dr. Angel. Yeah. And that was probably the first time what I was writing was being taken very seriously.
Right.
You know,
we had a college professor giving us positive feedback, sometimes negative feedback. I mean, sometimes always constructive.
Always constructive, and the main thing was it was taken seriously.
Yes.
I was like, look, you know, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This isn't something that you're doing as a pastime or as a, you know, or as a self-indulgent kind of behavior or anything. You know, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You know, and I had written some songs in some bands I'd played in. Mm-hmm. You know, and that was enriching and encouraging. But yeah, like you said, that, you know, we had college professor saying, no, you're here to write something, and we're going to put it on this concert, so get to work.
You have a calling, answer your call.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's when I decided that I was capable. It was probably when I decided that this was something I was going to take seriously. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, life kind of went on from there, and at some point I started calling myself a composer. I'm not even really sure when that happened, but...
Well, when you're composing, speaking of composing, let's talk about the process.
Oh.
Let's talk about what determines your instrumentation. I do hear a lot of strings, like you said.
Yes.
But, and there's a very warm thing happening regardless of what you're doing, you know, musically. It's just a great warm sound. I love the sound of strings.
Well, they're as close as any artificial instrument to the human voice.
Ah.
It's close to the human voice as any man-made instrument in terms of the way they create sound, create music. You know? When you bow the string and the string starts to vibrate at a pitch, that's as close to what's happening in your voice when you sing as anything. So they have this connotation of being very human.
Yeah.
You know, to my mind anyway.
Yeah.
You know, to being very human and to being very very emotional and being very singing, even though they're not. You know, there's no words involved. You know, string instruments to me always sound like someone singing.
You know, particularly it seems like the cello. And I'm going to go ahead and this is one of my crazy little crackpot theories, but there might be something to this. The cello and the guitar, like the electric guitar, and the cello more so has become kind of a bigger deal lately in the past few decades, I think, with Yo-Yo Ma and people like that.
Oh, yeah, man.
Well, those are all within the vocal range, the human vocal range, singing range for the most part. So it's kind of like maybe primally we're used to responding to those frequencies more so emotionally and...
Yeah, and again, their timbres are sort of vocal timbres. You know, I mean, you know, when you sing, you know, you're blowing air out your lungs, and they're passing over your vocal cords, which you've used your throat to tighten into a particular pitch, and you blow the air, and they vibrate. So you know, it's very similar to the bow going across the string, you know, setting that string to vibration. Whereas, you know, wind instruments have and plucked string instruments like the guitar, you know, they have different ways. You have the struck thing with the guitar, and you know
the transients.
Yeah. The winds are a very non-vibrating and non-overtone heavy sound, and you know.
And again, with the strings, they're fretless, like our voices.
Yes, yeah, which means you have to learn where those frets are, or where those notes are.
Well, yeah, where the frets would be. I still have little pieces of tape on my cello.
Yeah, you know.
Painter's tape, mind you. It's not nothing.
I'd have to ask one of my string player friends, but I don't think that someone who starts off on a string instrument necessarily thinks in terms of frets the way someone who starts off on a fretted instrument thinks in terms of frets.
Perhaps not.
You know, I feel like they think more in terms of finger position.
Yep, where I put my finger.
And just use their ear to attenuate, you know, their fingering position to the right place. They kind of think in those terms more than frets. I don't know. That's my crackpot theory. I'd have to ask them, but.
Well, okay, so you're digging the strings, and that explains that. What are some other things that you like to balance those things with? And let's talk a little bit about balancing textures.
Balancing textures, yeah. Well, you know, for a lot of my life, I have written for instruments that I knew people who could play. You know, one disadvantage I have, and it's a common disadvantage. There are lots of people that have this disadvantage, but one disadvantage I have is that, you know, I don't really play the violin or the cello or the piano at the level that I'm writing for these instruments, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I can't, you know, this was not true when I was a teenager, but it's definitely true now, is that I cannot really play myself this stuff.
Yes.
Right? So a lot of times I'm writing for instruments that I know people who can play it. You know, I mean, I'm fortunate to know a couple of very good pianists in town who enjoy playing my music, and you know, I will write for what they can play.
That's cool.
Yeah, you know, and I will write with them in mind, and so you know, I know, you know, because we have an orchestra in town. An orchestra means, you know, many string players in town. I know string players, so a lot of times I'm just writing for, you know, who I think I can get to play this on a performance.
So you're kind of taking advantage of the resources available.
Yeah, a lot of times, and you know that's sort of a practical side. I'm also drawn to the strings, I think. Yeah, for all the things we just talked about. Drawn to the piano. There's so many different things the piano can do. You know, the piano can create so many different kinds of timbres and things, and so much different. You know, it's almost like writing for orchestra to write for piano.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm definitely drawn to those. You know, when I do write for winds, I try to write idiomatically. You know, I wrote a wind piece for a chamber trio not long ago, and this was a clarinet, trumpet, and piano. You know, and So a lot of times, in instances, that's the ensemble's makeup. So I don't get to choose.
The ensemble comes first.
Yeah,
in this case,
the ensemble comes first. So
that's the resources available, right? I mean,
yeah, the resources available. So and when I do that, I start thinking, okay, well, you're talking about balancing textures. Well, how do these things go together? The clarinet is extraordinarily acrobatic.
Mm-hmm.
The trumpet can do a lot, but the trumpet is very sonorous.
Yeah.
It's a very unique kind of very complex sound. This is complex. It's one of those sounds that you can sort of listen to a trumpet play, and if you listen to it closely enough, you start hearing all sorts of things going on timbrally and things.
Things that make a sound, things that make the trumpeter's sound.
Yeah.
Specific.
Yeah.
Kind of like their tone, I guess.
Yeah. So you start thinking about those things, and you think, well, how can I make these instruments sound good
together?
And how do I exploit what all of these instruments do really, really well, sort of in tandem with each other. And it's an art.
Mm-hmm.
It is not there's no trick. There's no, well, here's, rule 1, 2, 3, and 4 about doing that. It's an art, it's a trick. The best thing you can do is know a lot about those instruments.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons I come back to strings a whole lot when I'm not forced by practicality and I'm just writing. One of the reasons I come back to strings a lot is because at this point I feel familiar with them. And, I know what they can do. I know what it's going to sound like when I write a piece for cello or write a piece for violin. Or
you have a more accurate snapshot of the product to come.
Yeah.
Of the product to be.
Or more faith that I can create that product.
I see.
Which is not to say, I have a flute and guitar piece, which was really popular when I wrote it. And, so I don't always write for bowed string instruments.
Hey, let's talk about the resources then, because if you just have a flute and a guitar, or if you just have a ukulele and a harmonica, you can put together. You compose things on one instrument. You can compose things on several instruments.
The art of composition doesn't change.
It doesn't change.
The art of composition and the art of orchestration influence each other, to be sure.
Yep.
So you may not necessarily take the same approach if you're writing for solo ukulele that you're going to take, if you're writing for string orchestra. But they influence each other, but the arts themselves don't change. The challenges you face writing a piece for harmonica and ukulele are going to be the same kind of challenges you would face if you were writing for symphony orchestra.
Okay. And I refer, on some level, you're talking about counterpoint and composition techniques and so forth.
Counterpoint, composition techniques, theory, knowledge, what you want to say.
What you want to say, how you want to say it.
Yeah, what kind of, this is, we're talking about making pieces of art here. So, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to prove? What are you trying to express?
Yeah.
Why are you sitting down and spending, all these hours, and it is usually hours, writing this thing? What are you trying, why are you doing this? These sort of big questions are going to be there no matter what your instrumentation is for. And sometimes the answers to those questions might help you choose an instrumentation, right? But
I'm not sure if I was holding those things into consideration when I got my first 4-track tape recorder. But at that point, I did know I had the resources to actually multi-track and put things together.
Oh, yeah.
So that was kind of my intro. I was composing music. I was doing things that I thought were mine and original.
Yep.
And that was my first inspiration based on the resources I finally had available.
Yeah.
Now, most people on their laptop can get GarageBand or things for free where they can actually multi-track and record things.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more, and even on your smartphone.
Oh, yeah, you can sit around on your phone and just put together those Apple loops.
Yeah.
Those pre-cookie cutter sort of...
Oh, but I even have one that's actually multi-track 4-channel. You can record your voice and sing a quartet or something.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
On your phone. Of course, it sounds like garbage, but
but you did it on your phone.
It's good enough for educational purposes.
Yeah,
if you want to go back into your studio later on and do it right.
You can sit there in the bus and compose music. That's
exactly.
That's something else. We live in great times. When I first started like writing songs for rock bands and things, it's like, well, the instrumentation is 2 guitars, bass, and drums. That's what music is made from. As you get older, so there's the approach is different every time. But now I feel like, either I have something I want to say, and I choose the instrumentation I think is going to say that best. Or I have an instrumentation presented to me, and I think, okay, well, what's something significant and profound I could say, with this instrumentation?
With the voices I've been given.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. Well, it didn't all come at once.
No. But now that it has come, and now that you are a composer, do you feel any pressure to put out a certain number of tunes in a given time frame?
No.
Okay, so a lot of composers are commissioned, right?
A lot of composers are commissioned, and I have been commissioned.
Yeah.
And when I have been commissioned, I have felt pressure to at least, again, I've been lucky. Most of the people who have chosen to commission me have done so because they, liked my music and were willing to be patient with me, and
can't rush a good thing.
But yeah, I've when I've been commissioned, I felt pressure. These days, no. I guess not internally. I don't put any internal pressure on myself. Really, not really. Maybe a little, but not much.
A healthy amount.
Of internal pressure, but not a whole lot. I'm not one of these people that beat myself up like that.
Well, that would be kind of I guess that could be kind of a troublesome existence, constantly beating yourself up.
I think it can contribute to that sort of stereotypical vision of any artistic person who's very sort of misanthropic and impatient with you, and and sort of difficult person to work with despite their genius. I think it. Constantly being on yourself can sort of bring that out a little bit.
Right. But because you have a more official, I guess, income or job, so to speak, from the university that doesn't require you to compose, you just do, you teach and all that stuff, but you're not you're not a commissioned composer.
Yeah, until I am. Then I am a commissioned composer, and I'm impatient, and I set myself a deadline, or I have a deadline set for me, or
so that does greatly affect it. Well, I mean, that's been my case too. It's like when I just imagine if you're always under the gun, you're not gonna put a true expression of what's coming from within because it's influenced by exterior sources.
Yeah, and you can close the walls in on yourself pretty bad.
Yeah.
And you can still write great stuff in that scenario. Many people work very, very well under pressure. I always, when I've been in that situation, have gone back and thinking, I really wish I had more time.
Oh, well, that's what I feel about after every release of the podcast, because I give myself, I have a time crunch when I'm not using your pre-recorded. When I'm not using your pre-recorded compositions.
Yeah, when you're using the bumpy music
and I have to come up with something that fits the topic of what we're talking about. It's fun. It really is fun. Yeah. But there's times where I say to myself, wow, what would I have done with this if I didn't have just a week to put it together?
If I had just another day here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally feel you.
Would anyone have noticed? I don't know, but I would have noticed.
We had a sort of kind of, I guess you could call it sort of a composer's hazing ritual kind of thing at Georgia, where we were occasionally required, and your name was drawn out of a hat. And they once your name was drawn, it was taken out of the hat. So eventually your name is going to get drawn. They would do this every so often, and your name would get drawn, and you would have 2 weeks to completely from scratch write a piece, find people to play it, and put it on a performance that was scheduled for 2 weeks from the hat drawing. Yeah.
That sounds so much more sophisticated than throwing somebody in a trunk with 18 beers and telling them to get on with it. If I'm gonna get hazed, I think I'd rather take the composer's hazing.
The composer's hazing. Yeah, that's what it felt like. Yeah, that could be stressful.
That's probably what your mind felt like after you were done with it.
Yeah,
like you had 18 beers.
Yeah, now you can lock me in a trunk with 18 beers because that could be stressful. But that was sort of a great experience, and to hit the ground running. Get something on paper, get some kind of unique. I think you learn a lot about yourself. In those kinds of exercises. I was like, well, what? When I don't have time to think and overthink and rethink. What am I just going to do? Just sort of out of compositional instinct, really.
Yeah. How would I compose under that kind of pressure?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, we were given a theme too. Did I mention the theme? So we were given a theme.
That's cool.
So I can't just write a bunch of random notes and go, notes here. No, we had a theme. We had to compose based on a theme, and
a little marathon composition.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Triathlon.
Yeah. The professor whose idea that was is retired. I hope they still do it, because it's an important thing.
Again, I could think of worse hazings.
Rituals.
Hazing rituals.
Yeah, that's because you've never had to do it.
Yeah. Fair enough.
You're confident in your ability to drink 18 beers. Are you confident in your ability to write a piece of music in 2 weeks?
Not at all. Yes, 18 beers, but rolling around in a trunk? I don't know.
Yeah, the trunk part would be the turn-off part, yeah. Yeah, 18 beers, I've got that. No.
What are we, Andre the Giant?
Well, how long do I have to drink 18 beers?
That's the question. Hopefully before your air runs out in the trunk.
Because if I had all night when I was 20, I could have probably done it.
Yeah.
It'd probably take me all week now, but
by yourself, that's gotta be so lonely, drinking 18 beers by yourself in a trunk.
Yeah.
Better be some good music playing.
That sounds like alcoholism.
That sounds like alcoholism. Kids, don't do this.
Don't do that, kids. Don't.
Okay, now let me ask you this. Because in a little bit we're gonna listen to a couple of your compositions, Matt.
Oh no!
And I'm gonna ask you about each one of them as we listen.
Okay, all right.
But right now, in general, I kind of want to ask, what inspires you when you're thinking?
To a certain extent, it depends on what period in my life you're talking about. Mm-hmm. There was a period in my life where I was inspired by music theory. I would learn some new kind of music theory thing, and I would want to incorporate that into a piece of music I was writing.
That's where I am right now, thanks to Music Student 101.
That is a step along the process, to be sure.
Okay. You learn something new, you want to try it.
Yeah, and I say there was a time, that still inspires me sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten to the point at which I'm, kind of creating music theory as I go. I'm kind of making up music theory ideas, to service my music. That still definitely inspires me a lot.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because it's kind of like an architect. How cool a building could I build? I'm also inspired a lot by, or at least I have been in the past, by the complexities of emotion. Anybody can write a happy song, I feel like.
Yes.
And it's not that hard to write a sad song. You can write a happy song or a sad song. How do you write a maudlin song?
A maudlin song.
How do you write a nostalgic song? Or how do you write a song that sounds like somebody remembering fond times, or how do you write a song that sounds like somebody who is hopeful for the future? How do you write a song that feels like somebody contemplating their own mortality? So that so there's all these really complex emotions, and how do you make music do that? I get inspired a lot by that too. Either running across some melody or chord progression or whatever that I think, that has a really unique emotional quality. What could I do to bring that out and structure it into a larger piece of music? Or the last piece I wrote at Georgia was called "I Feel as Though I Have Always Been Cold."
Yeah.
and it was that was something that was working on multiple levels, at least for me, because on one level, it had been cold for months. It was December, and I did not remember ever being warm. So it's like I feel like I have just always been cold. But then on the other hand, it's like I feel like I've always been distant. I feel like I have always had this emotional moat between me and other people. And then there is so it's kind of working on all of these different levels to really get it things that are beyond just happy or sad. And that kind of thing has inspired me a lot. These days I've come to the idea that a good music is a meditation. That a good music is a moving experience that takes you. A good piece of music is an experience that takes you outside of your egocentric, concerned with your own little petty details of your life kind of things, and puts you into a mental space and an emotional space that is bigger than that.
Yes. There's a thing to music therapy.
Yeah.
Music itself, in my opinion, is music therapy.
Yeah. Music is therapy.
Music is therapy. Because there's lots of music that take me to places that make me forget all about other garbage happening in my day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's something that spans all genres, and all instrumentations, all cultures, is this music that is capable of getting us to do that. And I've come to that late in life, I just recently. I think for most of my compositional career up until now, I've been a fairly intellectual person. Not by some standards, but definitely a fairly intellectual person in terms of the way I approach doing this. And now I'm just getting to this point now where I'm thinking, well, good music is not something that I look at with the cold regard of an analyst. The good music is something that's supposed to wash me past all that and bring me out of all that. So I'm trying to do that.
That's good.
And that inspires me a lot.
And it sounds like the one you're talking about actually came very much from within.
Oh yeah.
Cold comfort. I mean, I've always been cold.
Yeah, I feel as though I've always been cold. Yeah. So yeah, different times, different things inspire me. I can still be inspired by something I hear that I think is awesome.
Based on what I just heard, Matt, I think I've come up with another cool exercise for our listeners to try.
Oh, excellent.
Just go to your whatever classical music channel you have, or just listen to any piece of classical music, and then listen to what's going on, and try to paint in your head a scenario that fills that sound.
That's a great little exercise.
Yeah.
That's something you ought to be doing anyway. But definitely, that's something that kind of happens naturally anyway, I think, to a lot of people. But,
absolutely.
But definitely try to do that.
Actively, yeah.
Yeah.
You'll
be amazed at what you find.
Close your eyes, paint a picture. I think I'm going to try that.
Definitely. And then write it down.
Okay, Matt, it is time to listen.
Okay.
All right.
I'm nervous. Why am I nervous?
Because I haven't told you which pieces we're going to do.
That's why.
You are coming in cold. You must feel as though you've always been cold.
Yeah.
Wordplay, we got it here.
Very funny.
Thank you. Okay, so this first one, actually, I wanted to use just because I kind of dig the story. It's kind of interesting how you came up with this, and
awesome.
I want our listeners to hear the background of this one. It's called "The Cold Comfort of Toys."
Oh yeah.
This was on our episode 46.
Yeah.
Which was the Overtone series. Little percussion,
Yeah, that is marimba and violin.
Marimba and violin. Those two alone?
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay. Now, what I hear is like a surprise. Well, something surprised me.
Yeah.
What went through your head as you were writing this one?
So, the task I was given was to write music that was in some way attached to the artwork by this particular artist. So this was premiered in a local art gallery.
Yeah.
And you can sort of hear it's super echoey, right? You know, so it's a big empty room.
Okay, so this is a live recording.
This is a live recording, yeah.
Okay.
So the guy's work, and I want to say his name was David Leventhal. You know, he did a lot of photography work where he would take Barbie dolls and G.I. Joe action figures and things like that, and you know, pose them in scenarios, but posing them in things that were, first of all, adult situations for one thing, and for another thing, things that just weren't childlike at all. There was a juxtaposition there. You know, the G.I. Joe people were, you know, dying in a war and things like that, and you know, the Barbie dolls were, you know, wearing lingerie and things, and
filling roles that are given to them by social scripts.
Yeah, and I was just, to me, what that art was saying, and I was given the task. All right, write some music that is associated with this in some way, and so the thing that struck me was the juxtaposition between, you know, the childlikeness of the toys versus the very unchildlikeness of the, you know, of the scenes and things, and so I envisioned these toys as being a way of trying to cope with stuff that was very traumatic, things that were very adult, you know, not just in the, you know, PG-13 way, but adult in the, you know, the mature, you know, the kind of things we deal with, war and
so we're not talking about smut specifically here.
Not smut specifically.
Okay.
Just like you know,
mature themes.
Yeah, conflict. You know, conflict, war, society and its corruption and its, you know, and things like this. So I was envisioning the toys as someone's attempt to come to grips with that by using something that they had this nostalgic comfort for, and it kind of not working.
I see.
You know, and so what comes out from the cold comfort of toys is this sort of this sort of soundscape, which is I'm trying to be emotional in some ways. But very dark and eerie. Yeah,
I hear that right now. As we creep up chromatically.
Yeah. So you're sort of trying to use these materials to come to grips with something, and it's not working.
Yeah.
All right?
And there's that thematic counterpoint of having the toys with their innocence and the themes that they're playing out with the complete.
Right. Yeah. And now as the line descends, it doesn't descend in that satisfying way that like a Baroque counterpoint line descends. Right. It's descending in this way where you don't really feel like you accomplished anything.
Yeah.
You know. And that was just somebody's stuff dropping.
That was a cell phone falling on the ground.
Live recording, people. It is live.
Oh well, that to me I found to be a very intriguing piece.
Yeah, the four notes of the violin sweep at the beginning,
yeah.
I wish I had the score in front of me. I don't actually remember those notes, but it was something. Something like that.
Yeah.
But those four notes actually encompass. Are the genesis of the entire violin line. So we're sort of center around one note and play around the notes around that, and then move to the next one and play around the notes to that. You know, for the what is effectively the A section of the violin line.
Yeah. That's a fun one, man. That's very interesting. Let us move on, shall we? We have another one.
Yeah, and that was a good one of me writing on a deadline too. So you know, I had.
Because you were kind of was that a commission as well, or?
It was a.
Social commission.
Yeah, kind of a social commission, kind of a do this if you want kind of thing, and we'll play it kind of thing. So I did.
Well, a lot of people get involved with the arts community and do things like that all the time.
Oh, absolutely. You know? Yeah. But I only had like a month to write it, so. Yeah.
Good thing you only stuck to 2 instruments then.
Necessity. I learned a lot from those Georgia hazing days, let me tell you.
Awesome, man. Okay, let's check this one out here. This one's called El Otro Muele. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. El Otro Muele. Yeah.
Let's see what's going on over here. I think I picked a few that has some different sounds here.
Yeah. Kind of glad you picked this one.
Yeah. What does this remind me of? It's kind of like a waltzy.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what otro muele means, and of course I'm going to ask it a little bit, but I'm kind of seeing like the ghost of an old married couple kind of waltzing in the night, you know? It's kind of sad, it's kind of scary, but it's really very pretty. It's kind of majory or
and
Lydian.
that is violin, clarinet, cello, and piano.
Okay. Was this a commission piece, or was this something you came up with?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. This sounds like it could be like the backdrop music to like a 60s movie, like one of those 60s melodramas where the worried housewife is frantically looking through the drawers for something mysterious and important that she lost. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm seeing things, but I can't explain them.
I'm thinking it could be like the sequel to Sirens or something.
Sequel to Sirens, huh?
But okay, so this is part of a 3-movement thing, and it is called 3 Pieces on Art by Celea.
Yes.
And again, we have chosen pieces inspired by art twice in a row. That's interesting. But yeah, it's So Enrique Celea wrote 3 different pieces. He has these 3 different paintings that I chose out of a whole collection to write this music about. And this one, El Otro Muele, translates roughly to the other pier. So there are... this is a painting of a water scene. It is a pier extending out into the ocean. And there are children playing on the pier, and there are waves lapping at the bottom of the pier, you know, and so
it's playful.
Yeah, playful, and there was a certain sense of nostalgia about it. You know, he didn't paint hyper realistically. It has that sort of, to me, it was sort of an impressionist inspired fuzziness, you know, and so it was sort of nostalgic. It was sort of playful. The colors that he used were very, very cool. And he had another one,
like bluish kind of hues to him.
Yeah, lots of blues, lots of grays.
Yeah, okay.
Lots of blues and grays, and just a little bit of black for the shadows and of the. So what was interesting to me was that he had depicted this very playful, childish scene in these very sort of cool, remote, kind of unemotional colors, right? Whereas, you know, he had another one that I'd also wrote a piece of music about.
The one I forgot?
No, the other one.
The Sigh.
The Sigh, right.
I'm looking at him right here.
Good, thanks. See, you think I remember stuff. He'd painted another piece called The Sigh, in which there was this big tree that was on fire.
Ooh.
Right, and, you know, so it was a really, really scary kind of desolate scene. But in that, he had used all these really warm colors, all these reds and oranges and soft pinks for the sky and stuff. And so I thought, well, you know, I like these contradictions here, and I wanted to express that musically. So I thought, well, the 2 big materials I have are, you know, pitch content, melodic content, chord progressions, and timbre.
Okay.
So I wrote some very minor key kind of stuff for the Sigh, and kind of dark, scary sort of stuff, but then put them primarily in violins and cellos. You know, and for El Otro Muele, I did the opposite. I wrote that very playful kind of theme, but emphasized mainly the clarinet and the piano.
Well, it got me when you said that thing about it being the art being kind of impressionist, I think you were saying.
Yeah.
Well, to me, when you mentioned that, I thought, okay, that's it, because I also got just a little feel of Prelude to the Afternoon of a Fawn.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Which is an impressionist piece of music.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, why am I blanking on the composer? It's
Debussy.
Debussy. Yeah. So that had almost kind of like it was inspired by that a little bit, kind of playful, meandering melodies and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the pedal for the piano is a great way to sort of represent that kind of fuzziness, because it kind of fuzzies up the chords that the piano plays when you hold the pedal down, and and of course that sort of waltzy theme was sort of water lapping like in my brain anyway, I mean, but then you have this sort of playful child melody. The highest instrument there is the clarinet, right? Yeah. Not the violin. And so you're hearing this in clarinet and piano, which are sort of, in my brain anyway, sort of less human, kind of more emotionally distant timbres versus the violin and cello, which are very, very warm kind of timbres, which I use for the Psy, even though that musical material was a lot darker.
It's a counterpoint between, interesting juxtapositions between the two pieces of
music.
Yeah,
and I was just trying to sort of reflect that juxtaposition I found in the art.
Speaking of impressionist composers, and French impressionist composers specifically, that piano actually, the waltzy piano thing kind of made me think of Satie a little bit. So.
Oh, yeah. He does a lot of that kind of stuff, doesn't he?
So that's cool, man. So really, for the one song, for one of your compositions you were talking about, the very first one came from within, but it sounds like these other two we just listened to kind of came from external sources.
Yeah.
But you made them your own. You did enough introspect in your process and enough thought about what's going on to really make it kind of come from within.
Yeah, and I guess that's an important part of what makes it good to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could have sat there and said, oh, well, this melody is one of the children playing, and this melody is the other, if I'd wanted to. But to me, I don't do things like that very much, that kind of direct, programmatic sort of... I don't do that kind of thing very much because I would rather try to get at what it's saying to me. I'd rather try to get at the emotional content somehow. Right. And what it feels like to stand there and look at this painting.
Mm-hmm. I can feel that.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen the painting, but I can actually kind of see it now. It's funny. Okay, now
I'll send you a copy. I've got a little JPEG version of it. I'll send you.
Maybe we could put that on the website.
Copyright issues.
Oh, never mind. Hey, that makes my job easier. One less thing for me to screw up.
Yeah.
Hey, all right. So now for something a little bit different.
Okay.
This one's called Meditation 2.
Ah. So first of all, this is electronic music.
Yeah. I have to ask you this also. Was this meant for surround sound?
It was meant for 4.0.
Okay. So I hear a lot of strange sounds kind of swelling up and fading out. How did you get those bells?
How did I get those bells? I'm trying to remember now.
Was that from some MIDI library?
No. All of the sounds in this, I sampled myself. One of the big samples I used was a monochord, plucking harmonics on it's a giant wooden box with a single string on it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Is that what this sweeping thing is?
I don't think we're hearing that in this particular part. The sweeping thing is cymbals, a cymbal roll.
Oh wow.
Which I put through. What did I do? Oh, I think I just expanded it in time.
Oh, okay.
So it went, and then put some dirtying up effects and comb filters and stuff on it, and just played with it in general, and like this lower version swirly thing is kind of just a lower pitched version of that. And there are maracas in this, and I think that bell actually came from, if you take a percussive sound like somebody hitting a wooden box, right? And it's a percussive sound.
Yeah.
But that's because it has all those extraneous frequencies in it, right? So I just went into digital editing and took and filtered all of those out until I was left with boom. Yeah, you can do that.
Just fine-tune EQing, so to speak.
It took forever.
I
probably should have just found a bell. But it eventually happened.
Okay, let's check this thing out here. We got some percussion coming up, I think.
Oh, yeah. Here comes some of the...
Because we're meditating, right?
We're meditating, yeah.
Everything's kind of mellow.
And quiet. I wanted you to have to listen to what was going on.
Oh!
Yeah.
Jesus, Matt. What's up, man? I was meditating. Why did you do that?
Why did I do that?
And that
it was fun.
I noticed you use a lot of kind of quirky percussion sounds.
Yeah,
not a lot of timpani, more so wood blocks and funny little things like that.
Wood blocks, yeah. Hitting wood blocks with some drumsticks. That's my bass.
I thought so.
Yeah. Highly edited.
Uh-huh. It only pops in once or twice.
Yeah.
Now what's this? Is this that bell you're talking about? Backwards?
This is the monochord.
The monochord, okay.
Yeah.
I need to check out one of these things.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of getting an idea of this landscape that we're dealing with. Tell me, where did this come from?
Oh,
these funny ones.
My idea was to try to depict what happened as someone would successfully meditate, in which these extraneous sounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah, these distractions would sort of gradually flow away.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking you to do, I guess, is to sort of concentrate and let these distractions come and sort of accept them and move on. I'm creating a soundscape in which the sort of the meditative quality is there, but you have other things competing for your attention. And as it goes on, these things are going to compete for your attention less and less until you're just left with a single meditating chord.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
There's that bass again.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, to me, that really paints the meditating process, my meditation process, because when you first said that, I thought, okay, maybe a cat in the next room knocked something off the shelf.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
No, this is me too. When I'm trying to meditate, I'm like, is my mind clear?
Yeah.
No, it's not clear because I'm asking myself if my mind
is clear. Your mind is clear, yeah.
So maybe that little maraca was me.
Yeah. Did I leave the coffee pot on?
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah, that kind of thing, yeah. So we're trying to concentrate through this, right? And it's also, this was actually the beginning of me, at least first attempting to create a soundscape.
Yeah.
Not something that was music theory interesting,
Huh.
but a soundscape that would sort of take you outside of yourself. If you sat there in a dark room and listened to like this, you might need to sort of propel out of yourself, And it was my initial attempt. I don't know how well I feel like I succeeded now, but
just know, guys, it's way cooler when you hear it in surround sound. Our listeners are going to hear it in stereo.
Yeah.
We're hearing it in mono right now, so we're not getting anything.
Yeah, we're not getting anything.
Well, we should be, but I can imagine that those sounds swirling around you in a concert hall.
Yeah, and that was totally the idea.
Yeah, man.
And they definitely do that. And my professor, Leonard Ball, was just a master at just placing things in a room, using pan and reverberation and volume and pitch to just sort of place things in your field of audition. I learned so much from it.
It sounds like this might be the climax of the piece.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the part where we're starting to push away, starting to push all those distractions.
Unless you throw something else at us at the last second.
I could do that. It's been a long time since I wrote this. I don't remember everything.
Well, I think that's another good example of, the composer letting his listener into his own mind a little bit. And now it fades out. So there it is.
Yep.
Kind of just fades out with a really nice, pure kind of tone, kind of a.
Yeah, the sort of the meditative tone.
You think about the meditation bells, the Tibetan meditation bells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I even had one. I think one of those percussive sounds was even a chime on a brass bowl. That might have actually been the bell sound. Now that I think about it, but yeah,
taking advantage of your resources.
Yeah, well, it's important in electronics. So this would qualify as musique concrète, right? I took all of these things, sampled them myself, and then manipulated them digitally into this sort of soundscape.
And what inspired this piece? Was this also a commission, or was this something that you?
Oh, this was required of me. I was in grad school.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I tell you what. In lieu of a recap.
Okay.
Because this is all really just, I wasn't writing down your answers.
I'm just talking.
Just listen to it again for the recap. No, but what we can do here is I went on the interweb, the worldwide interweb.
Oh, all right.
And I found an article by Bob Reynolds, who is an American jazz tenor saxophonist, Grammy Award-winning member of the band Snarky Puppy, who we've talked about a little bit before. Aaron Branson, our guest for the bass episode, was talking about how he was inspired by Snarky Puppy. I'm not terribly familiar with their music, but a lot of people seem to be, and I need to check them out. But I do know that they're got some pretty serious chops and some serious cred. Bob has worked with John Mayer also. He's also had 9 top-selling solo albums. So he does a lot of composition, and maybe he can shed some light on some good composition techniques here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just
would know.
I'm just going to read these out, and maybe we can comment as we go. Whether we agree or disagree or gel or whatever.
Okay, yeah, let's see.
Okay, the article was 16 tips on composing music, and again, this is by Bob Reynolds. Let's start with the first tip, shall we? Mm-hmm. He just says movement. I always get ideas while walking. This is an old trick Beethoven used to walk each morning before sitting down to write. Isn't that funny? Movement. Will blood flow, increased blood flow can increase activity in the brain. I'm
increase
guessing.
Concentration, and
you get a good sense of rhythm just walking. You're establishing a pulse. That's all I've got.
If I want to get semi-artsy about it, on top of that, I could also say, that music is actually a very visceral thing, and doesn't get enough credit for being born in the body and being of the body. But it very much is. I mean, rhythm comes from our heartbeat. We learn what a rhythm is before we have a brain.
Yes, we do.
Pitches come from our own vocal cords, and so. To get up and to be moving and to be exercising the body is to be sort of putting yourself into a mental condition that is conducive to musical creativity. Mm-hmm. I can buy that. I can buy that if he can go take a walk or something and come back with some musical ideas. I could definitely buy that. Not
to mention you're changing your surroundings. So maybe you're going out, you maybe live in the woods, you're taking a walk through the mountains, hiking through the mountains. Yeah. You got something that inspires you, like maybe a beautiful view, a breathtaking view, or just a sense of oneness with your surrounding area, be it nature or be the city you live in.
Yeah, you're also taking a break.
Taking a break. Oftentimes people use that time to collect their thoughts and to think about things.
Yeah. I think better when I'm standing up. I contemplate better when I'm standing up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that why people pace?
I think so, probably.
When they're thinking about stuff. I just lay on the ground and think about stuff, man. I don't pace, I just lay on the ground. Okay, now this next one is... I don't think these are in any order. There's 16 of them, by the way, so we're going to try and buzz through them a little bit. But I don't think they're of any order of importance.
Okay.
But if they were, number 2 is bass lines.
Come first.
Yeah, a lot of... see, that's the thing. Maybe we're fortunate to be bass players because we think from the bottom up. Mm-hmm. And most of the stuff I compose, it is bass. And again, this goes back to the resources available.
Yeah.
Well, I know I can play a bass, and I know I can record it and be happy with the first few takes.
Very often, the bass line comes first.
So that's what I'll start with, personally. Yeah. And it sounds like our friend concurs.
Yeah.
Tiny melodies. A melodic motif or combination of 2 chords often gets the ball rolling for me. Mm-hmm. So start simple. Don't overwhelm yourself.
The longer I go on composing and trying to write, the simpler my music gets.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. Now that's interesting.
Yeah, the stuff I'm writing now is much simpler than even those pieces that we listen to, which are themselves much simpler than I was writing, when I was getting my master's degree and stuff.
That's funny. Because when things were theory fresh for Tonal Vision, the band I was in during college, that's when we came up with some of our craziest stuff, the stuff people wouldn't end up dancing to a whole lot. But we had...
all that 11/16 time. And
did we feel like we had to flex our theory muscles and show we had something to prove that we were very intelligent musicians? I don't know. I think we were having fun, where a lot of people I could tell... just standing back there folding their arms.
Going like, what is this?
But we were laughing the whole time. So I guess as long as someone's having fun.
And that someone can be you. Most music in the world is created to entertain the people doing it, not anyone else.
But to go back to the point, you're saying you tend to start with simpler things these days.
That's absolutely.
The next point is balance. Be thinking about balance. Much of composing for me, says he, is trying to balance the more pop than jazz chord progressions I favor with sophisticated jazz harmonic textures I know and love.
Yeah, I don't care so much about that anymore.
Yeah?
Maybe there was probably a time in my life where I thought, oh, this chord progression I just wrote is too simple.
Yes.
And I suppose it can be, if you're writing chord progressions, if your music feels too simple for you, then a good response to that is, well, could my chord progressions be more sophisticated?
Yes.
If you're not happy with what you've produced and you think, well, okay, that's because this feels a little simple, then it is a good question to ask yourself, well, maybe I could throw in some borrowed chords or some secondary dominants or whatever you want to do, but to make it sophisticated for the sake of making it sophisticated, or to try to balance simple with sophisticated isn't something that I'd get into. It should be simple enough to say what it wants to say, and it should be complex enough to say what it wants to say.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to something in my mind that we haven't even touched on in this episode, and that this guy doesn't talk about, but I think it's a huge thing. It's very important, and I want to address it right now. Balance. Just is levels of sophistication. Mm-hmm. So when I'm writing a piece of music, I think to myself, okay, I got this melody here. Well, there's only 12 notes in the scale. I'm sure this melody's been done before. Mm-hmm. If I put a major C, a major 1, 4, 5 progression to it, then there's a good chance that that's been done before too. Mm-hmm. Now, if I take that 5 chord and make it a 7 chord, or if I put it in a weird time signature, are you about to start?
Okay. I was just going to...
Let's hear a 1, 4, 5 chord progression with the melody on it, if you can.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to play this, and I'm going to then ask you how sophisticated you think the composer was.
Yes.
All right, so here we go. Maybe here we go.
I'd be very surprised to learn that came from a sophisticated composer.
Franz Joseph Haydn.
That's the Surprise Symphony, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So, but then this man lived hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
So the chances that's been done since then are greater because people have more accessibility to instruments and composition. Hey, but my point...
It's been done plenty of times at that point.
My point is, don't let that stop you.
Yeah.
Don't let that be a something that gets you in your way, an obstacle to just putting your stuff out. Because I find myself putting out more and more simple stuff like you're saying these days and actually enjoying it the way it sounds.
Yeah, music is a language. It's just as much about when you choose to do something or how you choose to do something or why as it is about how original it is. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will hold originality up as the end all be all. Mm-hmm. I'm just kind of not one of those people.
Nah. Yeah, because once you get so original, again, you run into the problem, am I still making music?
I probably ought not to get on a rant, but you do get to a point where everybody's trying to do something that is as original as possible, and it kind of ironically all starts to sound the same.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Now, let's move on, shall we?
Yep.
Be like Wayne. This is interesting. Wayne Shorter is who he's talking about. He says, I like Wayne Shorter's melodic approach to writing. There's often a singable melody with a sophisticated harmonic movement, but also a sense of keeping one thing the same while changing something else. For example, static melody notes hanging over two diatonically unrelated chords. Mm-hmm. So he's talking about changing chords under one note, to just try and...
Yeah.
That's one other way to make it like something that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, that's a great little technique too. Keeping the idea of keeping some things the same while changing another is how you create motion in music and how you get to the next part of the piece of music you're playing, right? So you have to make those decisions. What do I want to keep? What do I want to change? But yeah, that's kind of what it's all about.
I have questions and comments on the next tip.
Okay.
Listen to what you love. It never fails. I put on some music that moves me, genre agnostic, as he says, and the ideas start flowing. That's kind of cool, but part of me feels like when I find myself listening to the same stuff that I know I already know it, it doesn't challenge me as much or doesn't move me to different places.
Yeah.
But I think he's just saying if you listen to what you enjoy, you're gonna get this sense of enjoyment, obviously.
Yeah, so if you feel
inspire.
stagnant, listen to some new stuff. Go look for some new music to be your new favorite thing. That's what I do. I completely agree with him about listening to music and being moved by it and how essential that is. You know, and you know, I've been like with you too about, you know, well, I've just heard this so much, you know. At that point, you know, my answer is, well, let's go find something new to listen to. You know, and I can branch pretty far afield. You know, my iTunes is an eclectic little place.
Yeah.
You know,
as it should be.
Yeah, Shona Mbira music. You know, Polynesian chant.
Interesting.
Japanese classical music.
Japanese classical.
That's
a podcast episode. Okay, he talks a little bit about rich harmonic movement, which I think we've kind of tackled a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Just keeping your harmonies rich and interesting.
Yeah, that's the whole podcast.
That's what we're here talking about. That's the whole thing. Okay, relationships. Tunes are often born from two chords, which when played back and forth begin to reveal a melody, mood, or both to me, says he. If I get goosebumps, I know I'm onto something. So maybe he's suggesting you just find two chords, play them back and forth, and maybe a melody pops out of that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or maybe a soundscape, you know, a moving experience. The thing I am composing right now that I just started a couple of days ago is, let's see if I can play this correctly here, but it's kind of got a, you know, and that's really just one chord in two inversions. So, and you created this kind of atmosphere here, right? So, yeah.
I feel like that's the war-torn city that the robots destroy while handing over the city with robots.
I love your imagery. I really do. That's great. Well, great.
You take me to such places, Matt. Now, the next tip he has is steel. He says steel, but
steel. Yeah, I know where he's going, and he's right. Steel, steel, and change it just enough so that nobody will catch you.
Hey, I've done a lot of that on my. I think we did. I did Tuesdays Gone from Leonard Skinner.
Oh yeah.
And I think I called it Tuesdays Here.
I've plagiarized so much crap.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right. Change it just enough so that nobody will call you on it, and then steal everything you can.
Try to put the music that moves you into a pot and stir it into something that you own.
Okay, whatever that means. It sounds great. So yeah,
right.
Contemplate that.
Well, that goes back to listening to what you love. You'll be inspired by the stuff you love. Borrow a few melodies. That's a good way to compose if you're having a hard time coming up with something just out of nowhere.
Yeah. Steal something.
Get inspired.
And then go, how can I cover up the fact that I stole this so it's not literally this?
Dun 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 versus dun 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 dun.
Nah, let's go up instead.
There you go. Now that's two different things.
See what, I mean.
See, Vanilla Ice could have gotten at least that creative.
Yeah, we would like to think.
Okay, next up is melody rules. This is personal preference, but I prefer melody to complexity. And it just sounds like if you think about the counterpoint rules we spoke of, that might be a good way to keep this in check. Give us the short and skinny of a good melody, you know? Contours and such.
There is, there is no step-by-step process to writing a good melody. Some things you can think about while you're writing your melody is contour, shape, and punctuation. Think of it as a sentence. And a sentence is going to have a comma in the middle, and it's going to have either a period at the end or an exclamation mark or a question mark. you know, and it's going to make a statement, you know. So it's going to say something in musical terms.
And once you find what you're going to say, keep also in mind the contour, like you're saying. Try and have just one highest point and one lowest point, and try and time them in a way that makes sense with what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
you know?
so... You know,
climax versus nadir.
Yeah, so... You know, statement, right? You know, so... And also, right, you know... So, you know, think about it music is a language. Think about it in rhetorical terms.
Here's one I haven't thought of that's kind of interesting. Begins with the end in mind. What mood does this song create? What's the end of the song feel like? And then work backwards. Have you ever tried that, Matt?
I am completely incapable of doing that.
That's interesting.
People have tried, you know, former mentors of mine have wanted me to do that, to either start at the end or start in the middle or something, and I'm just incapable.
You're just like, I'm going linear.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my middle becomes my beginning. So it's just...
I like that too much.
Yeah. There have been times when what I thought was the beginning did become the middle, because I was not, you know, because I was expanding and expanding and expanding on just the first couple of measures. I actually said, well, that can go on for 4 measures. And it's like, well, it could really go on for 8 measures. And when I'm really doing this whole other thing, you know, so that has happened. But as far as, well, I'm going to write the ending first, I don't like to call it the ending until I know it's the ending.
That's interesting.
You know? So I'm... Other people are great at doing that, and you know, this is a process. Everybody has their own different way. That is not my way. I'm completely incapable. Most of my stuff I write beginning to end.
Yeah. I think for the sake of the podcast, I might have written a piece that I was like, okay, this has got to end in a deceptive cadence.
Yeah.
So I know I'm going to do that.
No, you're going to do that.
But I don't start at the deceptive cadence and work my way backwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know what I'm going to do when I get to the end almost always.
But if you can do that, man...
Yeah,
that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Another on that note, he said, put the end at the beginning and put the beginning at the end. So maybe he's just suggesting when you think you finally have a composition, shake it up a little bit, mix it around. Maybe you'll find something cooler. What do you think? Again, you sounds like you write kind of linear.
I tend to write kind of linear, and I tend to kind of, you know, have this quasi hero's tale idea of, you know, the beginning is the end. You know, just somehow made more satisfying by my having taken the journey through the piece. You know? So, you know, but that's just me. You know, definitely, you know, do that and see what you think.
Okay, here's the final thing. Sing. If you can't sing it, should you be writing it? My answer is yes.
My answer is also yes.
I think he was looking for a no.
Yeah.
But I think what he was going for was maybe a recognizable melody. So I wouldn't sing like root 4 octaves up, 5 octaves down, 4 octaves up, all these crazy jumps and leaps. Maybe that's what he's talking about. But I think if you're writing for an instrument, one of the liberties you can take is the fact that you don't have to restrict yourself to your own voice.
Yeah. Well,
Nice.
Bach.
Yeah, Bach. Yeah.
You know, can I sing that? No.
Oh yeah, that would be very difficult to sing at that speed.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, why don't you go try to sing the first movement of the Pathetique Sonata or Beethoven's Hammer Clavier? Yeah, go try to sing the Hammer Clavier. Beethoven couldn't sing it either, you know. But I think what he's trying to mean is have your piece of music in your ear. Don't be writing as though notes were just black dots on a page that have this mathematical connection, like we were talking about earlier. It's more than that.
Again, we're making music.
We're making music. This is an art, and it is this art of sound. You know, so have those sounds in your ears. You know, work on your ear training, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
You know, this is so important. And know what the piece is supposed to sound like. Imagine that you can hear it, and don't write something that you can't imagine hearing.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah.
That takes away from some of the incidentalists.
Yeah.
What they can do.
Some of the Yeah, John Cage has a definite point. We'll talk about his.
Yes, we will. We've already gone a bit over in this episode.
Yeah, and it definitely yanks away from some of the people before him, some of the avant-garde serialists and things like that. But I don't really subscribe to their compositional philosophy. Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll get somebody in who does, maybe.
Well, we said early on, we told our listeners that you should try and sing what you're playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you can play what you sing, then eventually you'll be able to do the opposite or vice versa. Or if you can sing what you play.
If you can sing what you play, you'll be able to play what you sing.
And
it'll marry you to your music, and you'll have that visceral connection to it. It'll be of the body, and
well put.
And then it will be good.
Holistic.
Yeah.
Magical and holistic.
Yeah.
From within to without.
Yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely. There is Composition 101, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I don't know if you learned anything.
Oh, I think...
Feel free to go back and listen to borrowed chords if you...
I'm learning more and more people just like to listen to us ramble, so...
Oh, well, we could do that all day. Hey, we'll move this up to weekly, and we'll just sit here, we'll break out the scotch.
Oh, hey. There's a long episode. Long, fun episode. So we have one more between this and the end of the year. So It's been another great year, but we'll save all that stuff for the last episode of the year, right?
So we have one more between. So we're taking a little holiday break.
No, we're just doing 2 in December. So this will be the first one, and then we have one more.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So last one before the end of the year, and then we'll see you guys next year.
Yeah.
Except we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Except that, yes.
Again, except that we won't see you.
Time is a funny thing with this podcast.
We'll hear you. Yeah, except that we won't hear you, you'll hear us.
I know.
So you'll hear us in a couple of weeks, is what we're trying to
God, that's confusing. Makes me want to write a piece of music about it.
Run with that inspiration.
Run with that, man. But yeah, as far as composition goes, we will be talking about, again, this is the inaugural composition episode.
Indeed.
But we're going to get into composing for jazz, composing for blues, composing for movies, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, film scores and stuff, yeah.
I got someone in mind. I think he's interested, and I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So yeah, there's way more to come.
Stay tuned.
Keep on listening.
We hope you found this episode helpful. You can be like Uncle Russell and help us out with a monthly donation at patreon.com/musicstudent101. If you want to see the washtub bass in action, look up the Short Hill Mountain Boys on YouTube and witness the amazing barefoot Kurt Schwartz do his thing.